Hello and welcome to our member-only question and answers with me, Orna Ross, and her.
Joanna Penn.
And we're here, as we are every month, to answer questions from the members of the Alliance of Independent Authors, all about writing, publishing, and promoting your books. So, Joanna, before we start, what are you up to this month in terms of writing, publishing, and promoting your books?
It is completely mad, and I always say this, and it's just way too much going on, so I won't tell everything, but I am very happy that Delirium is finally coming out in the next week. So I'm really pleased about that, because last time we talked live, I said how difficult I was finding it, and I'd really lost the plot, and my wonderful editor helped me with my rewrites, so I was really pleased with that. And yeah, so that book's coming out soon. I'm also in another box set called Thrill Ride with 7 other authors, which will be great because that last box set I was in, Deadly Dozen, hit the New York Times, USA Today, sold 100,000 copies. So I'm quite keen to repeat the process if it works. So we'll see. Lots of other things going on, but what are you up to?
Me, I'm still in Go Creative Land. Those of you who kind of tune in regularly will remember that I had a plan. To bring out a book once a month, all through from April of this year to December. 8 books anyway in total. So first few were fine, but then I ran into editorial issues really, and as a result, 3 of the books are going to come out together in September. So I am just, really casting myself about from one book to another, taking things out of here, putting them over there, and getting them off to editors, and then doing the next one. So like you, it's really busy, but it's not that kind of manic busy that happens with promotion. It's a sort of a more creative
Production,
I suppose,
yeah.
which is appropriate given the topic of the books.
On that, because it's interesting, I had an email question from someone who said, how should I split my books up? Should I do this? Should I do that? And we've talked before about splitting books up, but my answer to him was, think about the customer and what the customer wants. So, for example, I'm writing this business book, and it's already 70,000 words. Now, I probably should make that 3 small books, but the more I think about it, the more How to Market a Book was one massive book, and people liked it, and I got good reviews, and it contained everything. And so I feel I want to make one book, not lots of them. Now, you've gone the other way and making multiple books, but are you feeling at any point like maybe you should have just done one big book, or are you happy with the multiple?
Well, when the work seems like, oh my God, am I ever going to get through this? I think, why didn't I just do one book? And I mean, this whole project started life as one book, and quite an academic book, and it grew and changed in the process. And I think, well, first of all, each of these books is 50 to 70,000 words
right.
Anyway. Yeah, so they're all, I mean, they are all sufficiently weighty reads in themselves. I think the concepts are also not, they're not, I mean, they're easy to read, but they're quite deep, the concepts in places. So I think had it all been put together, it simply would have been too much information in one type. So I've broken it down into the creative process, creative principles, and creative practices, and each of those breaks down into a few books. So I think it had to be broken up. I'm much more satisfied with it, even though it's been obviously an awful lot more work. I mean, I'm just going to bring out these 4 now, and then do one at a time in between my fiction books going forward. So I'll never spend quite as much time here again. And there's the work of years. I mean, I started this project back in 2011, so it's going to be amazing to actually see them out there.
Get it out there.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on. So we've got a number of questions today, some bigger than others. So let's get straight into them. The first question is from Julia. Is there a list of novel competitions where self-published authors can enter? I started going through the Writers and Artists Yearbook section on competitions, but became disheartened when I realized that a lot of them only accepted submissions from traditional publishers.
Yeah, well, we recently did a post. James Minter, one of our members, did a post for the self-publishing advice blog where he brought together 50 awards and
Mm.
competitions that do accept self-publishing entries. So certainly there is that comprehensive list there. Few things to say about this. Competitions and awards are two different things, and a lot of people are jumping on, as they're jumping on all over this wagon in different guises. A lot of people are setting up and creating competitions and award schemes and so on to give to indies and to allow indies to enter, very often at a cost, sometimes at a very high cost. And sometimes there's just another indie author behind this. It isn't really, and it's not really worthwhile getting it. So you definitely need to be vigilant around awards and competitions. Like anything, you need to ask yourself why you're entering. If you're entering a competition to get attention and notice, it's possibly better to just write another book and put it out there, because when you go into a competition, you're not just writing a book that's good enough for a reader to enjoy it and to find value in it. You're actually going up against lots of other people, and it can be quite frustrating if you're entering and spending money particularly and not being awarded. So that's one thing to look out for. But if you do want to, I mean, there's no doubt that it can, when a reader lands on your website, sees an award, it can, for some readers, make them feel safe enough to actually go and make that purchase. So it can have some value, but you definitely need to look out, be careful about which ones you're entering, and not enter a whole lot of them. But
Mm.
first of all, ask yourself, why are you entering in the first place? Is it that old question of validation? Somebody else thinks I'm good enough, and is that actually something that you need to tackle with a competition, or do you need to actually perhaps change your own sense of what is a valid thing to do?
Yeah, and Jane, that blog post is at selfpublishingadvice.org/50 book awards, thanks to James Minter. And Jim Cookrell from the Sell More Books show actually took all of those awards and has created a spreadsheet with how much it costs to enter. So which is another thing. A lot of, even if these are just $50 each, you're going to end up paying a couple of grand to enter all those prizes if you want to. So you can find that. I've created a redirection at thecreativepen.com/prizes that will take you to that spreadsheet from Jim Cookrell at the Sell More Books show, which is a fantastic podcast. And I also just wanted to say, just on the awards side, the ITW, the International Thriller Writers this year, I just came back from Thriller Fest in New York, which was awesome, and Rebecca Cantrell won the Best Ebook Award, and her book is an indie self-published. So that's really awesome. So, yeah, it is. It's really, and it's the first time that's happened. And I should say that ITW, which is at thrillerwriters.org, is open to indie authors. I'm a full member as an indie, and what's great is that they just didn't make a big deal about it. It just wasn't even mentioned, which in a way I think is good.
It is good, and we can mention it as indies. We can say, hooray,
Yeah.
this is fabulous, but it's wonderful when the organisers actually just say, well, here's the winner, and
Yeah, here's the winner in the book.
yeah.
And I equally, as an author there, it wasn't an issue. Nobody treated me any different, even though Scott Turow and Doug Preston were there.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, Thrillerfest has been always exemplary, I think, in how to handle it, which is basically, don't go there. Talk about quality, talk about good books, talk about great writers, and forget about how the book was published.
Yeah, which is how we hope it's all going to happen. And Julia had a second question. Is there a benefit to running a BookBub and a KDP Select promotion at the same time?
Absolutely. I think, well, that's the short answer. The slightly longer answer is that a lot of people use free, put their books into Select, which means that they're exclusive to Amazon for a 90-day period, and then think that that's promotion. But Select in and of itself is not, if it ever was, it certainly isn't now. So the fact that the book is free is not enough to sell it. It needs to be promoted in some way, and whether you're promoting free or paid, there is no doubt that BookBub is one of the best sites if you can get them to feature your book.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
wants to
the
be
problem.
BookBubbed. That is an increasing problem. When they started, it was much easier. Every indie wants to be BookBubbed right now, and there are some other sites that are springing up who are trying to do the same thing, but nobody, I think it's fair to say, as yet has the reach that they have. They've just really done a fantastic job.
And I'd also say I asked a guy from Apple at Thriller Fest. I said, you know, we have BookBub for Amazon. What's the best thing for Apple for iBooks? And he said BookBub.
BookBub, yes, yes, yes. That's the other thing people forget. And
Yeah.
in fact, having your book available on Apple, Kobo, and the other outlets will make BookBub more likely to pick you up. So that
Yeah.
means, by definition, you wouldn't be in Select. So there are things to
Yeah.
think about there. But the
So
short answer is yes.
yeah, and I have Pentecost on permanently free, and the last time I did it, I had it promoted on all platforms on BookBub, and it went really well. So definitely, if you're going to do it, you don't just have to be on KDP Select. You can get the price matching to happen on Amazon, so the book's free everywhere, and then do it. The only downside, of course, is then you're paying for promotion, but you're not getting any revenue. So only worth doing if you have a number of other books for sale, so that it actually there's some on sell. Yeah, so that will cover promotion, I think. Okay. Oh, this one. Well, this one I'll answer first, and then Orna can come back on print because I'm terrible. But Anthony asks me, Joanna, I believe you've mentioned before that you have Amazon Prime and purchase your own author copies, print copies, directly through Amazon and have them shipped with free shipping to your house when you're selling author copies. So doing that instead of buying author copies at CreateSpace. How do the numbers break down for this? Is it more convenient shipping wise? Do you make more money per copy? Okay, so Anthony, I think Anthony is in America. We are in the UK. When UK authors publish, or any other non-US authors publish on CreateSpace, the author copies have US shipping. So we all have to pay, if we order author copies, we have to pay US shipping, which is actually quite expensive to get it even within 7 days. So there's not much point in my mind an author ordering author copies from CreateSpace back end, even if you save a couple of dollars. What I do is just go on amazon.co.uk, order my own print books, get free shipping, so then I get the sales, I get the money back through the royalty percentage, and I don't have to pay any shipping. But then two things: print is not really my business model, and I just do it for marketing purposes, and so I do it very rarely. It's not really a big deal. So Orna, do you want to answer that from because you use Ingram Spark as well, right?
Yeah. First of all, I don't think that that's the Prime. I would need to double check this with Prime, but I don't think that's going to work, Anthony. I think it's clever creative thinking, but I don't.
No,
I
that's
don't
what
think.
I do. That's what I do.
Sorry, but by him through Prime, it would be free.
Yeah,
And free for shipping.
yeah.
So secondly, I don't know. Yeah, so I just need to check that part of it. But Ingram Spark is another option for print, but again, I don't think that that's probably going to work out all that well with Ingram. And I think in terms of buying and shipping your own books as a business model, I think that it really, the amount of time, effort, money, etc., print doesn't really work well that way. Where Ingram comes into its own is if you have actual interest from bookstores, and in order to do that, you need to be marketing into bookstores. So I suppose what I'm trying to say in a long-winded go around the world kind of way is, to make money selling print books, is a very time, labor intensive process. Mostly indies use print, as Joanna was saying, for promotional purposes and sell and make their money through the sale of ebooks. So unless you are, you have, for example, a back of the room sales, you do talks, you have a gift shops, or you have some kind of special sales outlet where you're going to be able to shift significant numbers of books, I wouldn't even be thinking about making money through print books. I would focus very much on ebooks, or else alternatively set up a whole campaign, which would include probably some traditional PR, but certainly a lot of marketing, and set up an outlet through the bookstores, which means somebody going in and actually, talking to booksellers and getting them to order your book, and all of which would take a long time, and I think would take some months to set up and do properly. Now, I am actually going to explore this myself with Ingram, just with one book, and just see. We're doing it as a pilot to see, is it possible to make this work and to make this work well? Already, we've run into issues around pricing. So the average POD book, it's almost impossible to get it down to the same sort of price level that a trade publisher can get on an ordinary book, and then that price will be discounted. So we've gone down as low as I think we could possibly go in terms of price that would return me a royalty of £1 per book. So we're playing around with it. It's purely, as I say, a pilot to see what is possible. What is great is that Ingram is very committed to trying to solve this, and if they do, I think that's going to be really great for indies, because they have a fantastic and unparalleled distribution network worldwide, and they're in places that other providers just aren't. So we will keep you posted on that one.
Yeah, so basically my situation is I just order copies when I'm speaking, and I only really have a couple. Like, I seriously have like 3 books on my shelf. I don't hold stock. So as Orna said, the only point in holding lots and lots of books is probably if you do a short print run and you are a speaker. And you do back of the room sales. But it's going to be interesting to see how Ingram Spark manage this potential future, or if they decide it's not worth it anyway, because of the change in all the physical bookstores. As we know, it may be that it's not a viable business model. So I think, in terms of business models, every indie has to decide where they want to focus their time. If you've only got X number of hours in a day, what are you going to spend that time on? And that's why I just generally don't do much print. I just put it up on CreateSpace and that's it. I'd rather spend my time doing other things.
But I do think we have to recognise that if your motive is not commercial, if it is something else, I know we have one member, Pierce Byrne, I forget his writing name, who has just published a print book, and he's gone to enormous trouble to get it into bookstores, and it is an absolute labour of love for him. And for him, his goal was to see his book in bookstores, and I know that is a goal, and certainly to have a print book that is available is something that most people want, not for commercial reasons but for other reasons. So fair
enough. And I did hear Hugh Howey on the Kobo Writing Life podcast, I believe, talking about looking for a bookstore to buy. So if Hugh buys a bookstore, maybe we can all just pitch him.
And then you're back to gatekeepers and traditional models and
yeah,
blah, blah,
exactly.
blah.
I was like, what? Really? That's crazy. I thought he was going to get on a boat and sail around the world. But
well, he used to work in a bookstore and loved book selling, so I guess that's something. But I do think there is a serious point here which is really worth thinking about, and that is we have been provided with these incredible resources and tools by Amazon, Kobo, and so on to sell our ebooks directly to readers, and that is a great business model for us, and it's a very satisfactory thing to do, and that we don't, because we're wedded to the way things used to be or something, spoil that on ourselves or see it as not the fantastic thing that it actually is. Harking after something that we haven't got and not putting enough attention into something that we actually do have, where we outclass the competition, where we actually are ahead of the game. So just to bear that in mind.
Talking of great programs from our distributors, let's talk about Kindle Unlimited, which last week there was a little, I think it was leaked. I think something happened. Either it was leaked or Amazon just decided to change the conversation. Enough yet already. Let's talk about something else. So I'll just briefly explain. Kindle Unlimited is a monthly subscription service for Kindle users that offers unlimited access to over 600,000 titles for $9.99 a month, only available in the US right now, and readers can test the service with a free month's trial. So I imagine lots of people right now in the US are trying this. As a reader, I was like, yes, that's awesome, because I spend a lot of money on books with Amazon, and I would definitely be up for that. As a reader, I'm very excited. What it also says, you can read Kindle books and listen to Audible audiobooks from a designated list of titles, an unlimited number of times, so you can read whatever you like. Amongst the titles are popular books such as The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and if you are an indie, participation is restricted to KDP Select titles. So it is exclusive. So on the author side, and then the compensation for authors is similar to the borrows under the Kindle Owners Lending Library, which most people are used to by now. It's a percentage of a pot. The real extra kind of thing that looks quite good is that the payment is triggered when 10% of the downloaded book has been read, which is interesting, I guess. But, you know, could be good. One thing I think is to point out that the Netflix for books idea of subscription models like Oyster and Scribd is no different to the library, really. So it's not this is not a new model. We don't need to freak out about a new model. It's just more the KDP Select thing, I guess. Do you want to come back on this, Orna?
Well, I think, you know, all I have to say about it is Amazon is so clever because, as you say, this model is very old and we're all used to it as readers, library, but the way in which they have taken the idea and made it favorable to them, favorable to us, and favorable to readers, I think is really, I definitely think people will, there is a certain class of heavy reader who will go for this model. I don't think it's for every reader. I think, you know, libraries are a minority sport, always were, even among readers, and I think the same will be true here. But I think what they have probably done is, for the likes of Oyster and Scribd, who have been in that space and have had that space to themselves, now Amazon are in there and the space is going to look very, very different, because what you can get from them, from Amazon as a reader, I mean, you know, it does outstrip what's available elsewhere. The 10% is interesting. You can understand why they can't pay for every single book that's downloaded. It might set a precedent, though. It could set an interesting precedent. So there's always this feeling, I mean, we love Amazon and absolutely love what they have done for us, of course, but there's always a feeling with Amazon whenever they change anything, indies get very nervous, because so much of our income is tied up in Amazon's coffers, and, you know, those terms can change at any time, as we saw with Audible last year. Or with ACX, I should say, the terms just changed overnight and went from being, you know, very, very good to just good. So yeah, it's interesting, and well done them from their point of view. And yeah, as a reader, I probably will partake also.
Yeah, exactly. Which, you know, and at the end of the day, Amazon is very, very good at focusing on what readers want, which is why, you know, they pretty much win.
Yes, no, absolutely, and on what their customers want, and you know, they do
That's
see.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do see us indie authors as their customers too. So, you know, those people who assume that everything will become horrible for indies someday, I don't think are necessarily right, because you know, as writers, we are customers in a way that a publisher that is using their platform to sell is not a customer in the same sort of way. So always interesting, Amazon, always taking over the news no matter what's going on. They'll come in with a new angle, and yeah, way to go.
And David Goffran has a post on this, or David Gogren, as the
Gocran,
Americans.
get your Irish pronunciation right there.
But for any Americans, it is David Gogren, because when I say David Goffran, no one knows who I'm talking about. So, he has an article on Kindle Unlimited, the key questions. One of the things he does say in that article is basically the launch of KDP Select was what first prodded Apple into throwing some treats our way, like pre-orders and participation in store promotion. So self-publishers are more important to the retailers now than 2 years ago, and this may force them to raise their game again, because they don't want I mean, like Mark Coker, we know, it has and I mean, we don't like exclusivity, but Mark obviously saw his business model change when KDP Select came in, and lots of people went into Select and pulled their books off other platforms. This could be another one of those events that makes people go, oh, I'm just not making any money on other retailers, I'm going to go back in on Amazon. I imagine that some people will do that, but David says it could be argued that the launch of KDP Select improved things for self-publishers overall on Amazon and outside Amazon. So that may happen again. If you're in Select, your books are enrolled in Unlimited, but there is a way to remove your titles. So if you object to this, you can remove your titles, which is awesome. Remember, we have the control, so you do get the control. One idea I thought is that writing a novella or a standalone novel that's not part of a series that readers are reading on other stores. So, for example, I wouldn't write an arcane novel and just put it on Amazon, because that would piss off people on other platforms. But if you wrote a standalone and put that into Unlimited, it may help people be introduced to you, and they may then go on to buy your other books. So I think there'll be ways to use this even if you are on multiple platforms.
Sure.
Okay, next question from AD Starling. At what stage would you advise an author to set up as a limited company or a small press rather than continue on as a sole trader? What are the pros and cons?
Well, there are two different questions, I think. Whether you call yourself a small press. To me, a small press is somebody who publishes somebody else. Otherwise, you're just an author, perhaps using an imprint. So I write as Orna Ross. My books are all published under the imprint font publications. So that's got nothing to do with my actual business structure. As to the point at which one should, I don't think there is an actual point at which you should convert to being a company. There are a set of reasons as to why you might and why you might not, and they're to do with everything from the type of content in your book. So, for example, if you are writing content that was potentially libelous, if you're writing polemic or political opinion or something like that, you would be well advised to be a company, so that if for any reason you were ever sued, it's not you're not a sole trader, you actually have that separate entity that is a company. And that's why most people set up a company, is to create that separate entity. In terms of your normal day-to-day expenses and stuff like that, it's tax deductible on both ends. So it really depends very much on what your aims and goals are. Joe, you'll be much more clued in on the actual business reasons as to why somebody would choose one over the other.
Well, obviously asset protection is one, as you said. There are corporation taxes can be more optimizable than personal tax. So certainly people who want to talk about that with a qualified financial person should do that. But in some countries and jurisdictions, the corporation tax can be lower than the individual tax rate. The other thing is estate planning. So a company, and in America now I think this is even more hardcore, a company is like a person, can be treated like a person. And again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial accountant, I'm in the UK, but hearsay opinion is that essentially so for me in the UK, I have a limited company. I'm a director, I'm a shareholder. I can create shares and give those shares to other people. When I die, that company can, or even I can sell that company. I don't have to die. I can sell that company on, but the assets within that company, I think the estate planning is much easier if you have a company with, you know, your corporate structure and the way you're going to run things. So, but if you haven't even finished a book yet, if you've only written one book, I would not even go anywhere near any of this stuff. I would seriously, you have to write at least one book. I would say you need to have written 3 books, because then by the time you've written 3 books, I think you know whether you've got the bug or not. I mean, obviously you can start a company that's not necessarily just about book writing. You can start a company for other things, but there has to be good reasons, because when you start any kind of company, there are legal and financial things you have to do. You have to work with an accountant around your taxes. You have to do reporting, statutory reporting. It costs you money and it costs you time to have a company. Now, as you said, you can have a publishing imprint, which you can just be that you fill in the field on Amazon under publisher with a different name. That's what a publishing imprint can be these days, right? It doesn't have to be a company. It can be the same one, but it doesn't have to be. So many authors use a publishing imprint, as Orna mentioned, that is and run as a sole trader. So don't confuse the two, and please only look at companies when you're really serious about this and you know what's involved.
And I think you can be a very successful writer and never become a company. I mean, for my writing work, I'm not a limited company. I'm just a sole trader. And the Alliance of Independent Authors is a special kind of company, community interest non-profit company. And so there are different structures for different things, but most writers, I would say, remain sole traders for the rest of their lives, and may hire an accountant and obviously keep accounts and have, you know, profit and loss, but never see the need, because it does get you into a whole load of complications, which you'll only do if it's beneficial for you. So yeah, I wouldn't, if you have to ask the question, you probably don't need to be a company yet.
Good call. And I want to recommend a book, Self-Publisher's Legal Handbook by Helen Sedgwick. That's a really good book. I'm going to be interviewing Helen on my podcast at some point.
That's so funny, because when you said you were going to be recommending Helen, we also we're putting together a book on how authors sell rights, you know, looking at TV rights and foreign and everything, and had been in touch with Helen just a couple of days ago, because that is a great book. Yeah,
it's really useful. And I'm also writing my Business for Authors book and looking at how much of that type of stuff to cover. It is quite difficult, especially because different countries have different things. But I'm someone I've had 4 or 5 companies now, and wound up most of them. So I'm quite used to it. So again, it's almost a practice thing as well. Once you get used to the kind of language around this stuff and what you need to do, it's like self-publishing, right? It's really complicated when you look at it the first time, but actually once you get going with things, it can be good. So hopefully that'll be useful. Right. Anything else you wanted to talk about? Do we have any live questions? I haven't even looked at them.
Yeah, I didn't. We have a few people here. Let me see.
Hello, if you're here.
Kindle Unlimited is only available to books in Kindle Select, which forces Amazon exclusivity. I think we've covered that. Thank you, Jane, for that question. And if anybody else has a question and you're here, please do put your questions through to us. The only other thing that I did want to let everybody know about is that we are in the middle of a website upgrade, and we have some exciting plans for the website in terms of Well, in lots of different ways. We are looking going forward very much at the whole world and at becoming a really truly global entity and kind of splitting the world into 8 different territories and setting up a team of people, of members who have kindly volunteered. And if any of you will be interested in becoming part of our street team, please do get in touch with Neris about that, Neris at allianceindependentauthors.org. So what our interest really is to draw on the wisdom of the group. We've got members all over the world and different things are happening in different territories, and we can really learn from each other and help each other to sell books in different areas. So, you know, we get impassioned pleas from our members in different areas saying, I've just put my book up in English, or from people who write in English saying, I've just put my book up in Germany or wherever, and it's just sitting there and nothing has happened. How do I make something happen? So this is our attempt to see how we can make things, how we can get together and help each other to make things happen in different territories. And lots of other things will be going on the website too, and we will be having our own forum there. As you know, we have forums in different places, and the most lively one is definitely Facebook, which is fine for the people who are on Facebook to a degree, but even there we find we're losing a huge amount of really valuable material. It just falls off. So we're going to have our own forum on the website where people can come in and, you know, look under a particular topic and again gather the wisdom of the group all into one place. We will keep going with the Facebook page. We won't get rid of that, but this will be our own place where we can gather in information. Our watchdog will also be much more visible on the site, and the various campaigns that we're doing and all the different resources that are there that I think people are maybe not even aware that they are there are going to be much more visible, and each member's journey through the site will be much more funneled. So rather than seeing everything that's there, you'll see what's actually applicable to you if you're a professional member, author member, partner member, or associate. So I'm really excited and really busy making it all happen. And Karen Inglis, I have to do a shout out for here because she has been just fantastic. She's an expert on information architecture, something I didn't know even existed until I spoke to her. And she's really helping to make sure that you know, we're very aware that the website is not as user friendly as it ought to be, and you know, making sure that this time it really is, and working with a great guy called Jeremy to help make that happen. So September, we hope, and we'll have a big launch and let you all know.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a really good example. A lot of the members have been around since you know, you launched and I was with you at the book fair 2 years ago, right? This is exactly the same journey as any author website, you know, and an author's development. And so often I get emails, you probably do too, you know, I haven't finished my book yet, but should I set up my website? What kind of design should I have? You know, how do I publish? And it's like, you just get started and then you change things along the way. So, you know, we launched London Book Fair with a basic website, I can't remember now, and it's changed, and the alliance has changed, and it's developing, and now it's going global, and, you know, more global, and this is like our own author journey too, and that's what's exciting. Things change.
Absolutely. It's the creative way. One thing grows out of another and you go with that. You take what's coming rather than thinking you have to have everything perfect before you start. Don't wait to be perfect. It'll never happen.
No, exactly. Another thing on translations, I had a chat with Matthias Matting, who runs a German site, self-publisher Bibel, and he set up authorbuddies.com. Which is where authors can put up their profile and say what they're looking for. So my profile's up there looking for German authors, German thriller authors, and you can actually find buddies in different languages. So authorbuddies.com, it's free service, so you can go there, and I've just featured an article on a German blog because of that contact, so that was quite good. The other thing to mention is the latest author-earnings.com report, which has just come out. Probably, I thought, one of the most interesting things is how little things have changed, as in the consistency now of the 3 quarterly reports that have come out. The consistent chunk that is belongs to self-publishing. And like you mentioned earlier, there's no way Amazon's going to cut us all out, or Kobo or Apple, or because they're making money. We're making money, they're making money. So it's not all going to come crashing down. But in that author earnings report was a thing about literary fiction. Did you read that?
I haven't read the most recent one. I've had my head in the Go Creative bucket.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just, what was interesting is that Hugh talked about how small the literary fiction bucket is in terms of.
Sorry,
yeah,
I did actually see that. Yeah.
Really, I put the excerpt on, and the thing is, I mean, again, we get emails from people all the time, and I feel it. I'm a thriller. I write religious thrillers, religious themed thrillers, of which are not the apex of the market right now. Let's face it. You know, we have to think about where we sit in this. In where things sell. So if 40% of the ebook market is romance, and you're not writing romance, then your income is likely to be smaller. And so for literary fiction, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a small percentage of the overall sales are in the literary fiction genre. Therefore,
it's tiny.
So if you're not making much money, one of the big reasons is that genre doesn't make much money.
I'd like to pick up on that, because I aspire to write literary fiction, and I have always been. Yeah, you know that. I've always been aware of this, and this is not new. You will hear people saying, "Oh, self-publishing, there's no room for literary fiction." And what is different is that the amount of coverage that literary fiction got in the mainstream press has led people to think that if they know an author's name, they're making a lot of money. But it's absolutely not the case. I remember talking to John Banville about his Booker Prize winner, The Sea. And before the prize, he had sold 700 copies. And he was one of Ireland's best known writers, really internationally respected, had won lots of other prizes that wouldn't be as well known as the Booker, but would be probably even more sort of prestigious. And after he won the Booker Prize, he sold a lot of books in literary fiction terms. He sold almost no books in Bella Andre or Barbara Freethy terms. He wouldn't even begin to feature. It wouldn't have been a good week for Barbara, let's put it that way. So, we get very mixed up if we believe celebrity hype, or if we think that I have written a good book, therefore I'm going to make money. It just isn't like that. And if you are becoming a publisher, which self-publishers are, author publishers, if you are becoming a publisher, you need to know these things. So as an author, you can afford to forget about all that, concentrate on your writing, never think about it, just do what you do and get on with it. As a publisher, you do need to start thinking about that, because you need to understand what your goals are. And we say this, don't we, every single call, but it really is the single most important thing. Why are you writing, and why are you publishing? What's it about? And I don't think that's a question that I think sometimes it takes years to actually really know. You think you're writing for one reason, but actually after 10 years or something, you have to admit, actually, that's probably not my motivation, because if it was, I would have given up years ago. So, but it really is a great moment in an author's life when you do understand exactly what you're doing it for. So if it is commercial, then you can go for it, and it will change possibly your decisions on what you will write. If it is creative or some other kind of unknown reason, reason you don't even fully understand yourself or whatever, and you fully accept that then, and you settle into a different place around it. So yeah, do make that kind of attempt to understand what you're doing and why.
And I mean, obviously I am commercial. I am far more commercial than you are around this business. But I had a chat to my husband about this the other night, and we were talking about my business and what I was going to do. And he said, look, if it's cash flow is all you want, just go back to your day job. And I was just like, oh, that's so right. That is just so right. The point was not necessarily to that's not the point, is my point too. I love writing my religious thrillers, and Delirium's so funny because it was, again, meant to be a straight crime novel and there's demons in it. I can't help myself, and that's what I write. So I'm not going to write into a market or whatever. I'm going to write what I love to write, and I'm making good money. Good, but not romance, 6 figures a week type of stuff. So and this is about validation again, I think, and about what does it mean, and if you've got a day job or your basic living costs are covered, then it should, it's got to be around doing what you love. And I was at a funeral last week, my great auntie, and when you go to a funeral, you're like, yeah, we're all going to die. So what's the point in even wasting a single day writing something that we're not passionate about? And it's hard, but we love doing this, right? We love seeing our work in the world. So that's the point.
Absolutely. I mean, you're singing my song, as you know, and I think it also has a very practical application and feeds back into what we were talking about at the earlier on in the call at the start. If you understand that actually you are in a genre that isn't one of those big sellers, you may re-question whether you want to spend £100 entering an award or whatever, or you want to spend X amount of money, or you want to kill yourself on Twitter or Facebook trying to reach out to find readers. If out of every 100,000 readers you own less than 100 of them, is it actually worth your while to be falling over yourself trying to do a huge amount of marketing? Might you be better to have a day job and get on with doing your writing and the thing that you love? So yeah, I mean, both at the really kind of deep core level that you're talking about, the importance of being true to ourselves as creatives and actually expressing ourselves, and then at the very practical level of day to day, I'm seeing definitely too many indie authors who are doing a huge amount of activity that is not going to generate income or creative reward, neither commercial nor creative. And we need to be everybody knows that we are both big proponents of the fantastic opportunities that are there now. But one of the downsides of that is there's so much opportunity, it can be really hard to say no. And we have to, as author publishers, our main skill is burnishing up that ability to say no, because once we're anyway good at all, and even if we're not, there's 100,000 opportunities coming our way every day. So yeah, it's always about that, knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, as much as you can in any given moment.
And I'm reading a book about this. It's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, the difference between the two and why it matters. And it's by Richard Rumelt. Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. It's a very business book. It's not aimed at authors or creatives particularly. It's aimed at business people, but it's so good because it totally goes into stupid mission statements and stupid goal settings, and I'm totally I'm into all of that, and it really looks at strategy, which is why what do you do and what do you not do. So I'm really because I don't want to have employees, I don't want to hire people, I do employ professionals, but I'm trying to decide what to say no to. So for example, I don't do consulting anymore. I've said I don't do that, and that's not my strategy. Even though that earns me more money per hour, I'm not going to do that. And then I'm being very careful around what I actually do and the things that I'm writing. So this is all going to be in my business book. I'm doing a lot of house cleaning in my own business, so that when I have put out my business book, I can be like, yes, I do what I say in my book.
I walk that talk.
Yeah, I do walk that talk recently. But this Good Strategy, Bad Strategy is excellent for kind of helping you cut through the BS that is everywhere and actually really focus on it. And I've been rewriting my business plan and really trying to be honest about stuff and not just aim for things that are pointless, and try and have a longer term view. That's the other thing. It's about the 5-year plan, not the next month plan, basically.
Yeah, honesty is the core thing, isn't it? Being honest with ourselves.
Mm.
As creatives, our imaginations are so fantastic that we think, oh, I can do that, and I can do this, and I'd love to do, yeah, and we're off on every single jag, and yeah, it doesn't work. So, but there's a certain amount of that has to happen before you understand what you do want or what you don't want, and it's a really exciting journey every step of the way, anyway. So yeah, I hope we're not putting people off here.
No, I don't think it will. Our aim with these sessions is to be honest about where we are, about where talk about stuff, answer questions, and we've been doing this a while now, I suppose, and I think it's important, like we said about the Alliance and for our personal journeys, we're always changing direction. I use the metaphor of skiing down the slope, and you have to keep zigzagging. You don't just head straight down. There's always a change in direction. So no, exciting times ahead. So we're back at the end of the month, end of August.
Yep.
Um,
Last Tuesday is essentially what we're doing now. So yeah, last Tuesday in August, which is, I wrote it down a minute ago.
26th of August at 4 p.m. London. We will be back, and you can leave questions or email or whatever, and we shall talk about stuff.
We shall have a great writing month, a great publishing month.
Bye!
Bye.